Around 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens emerged in East Africa. But they were not the only human species alive. At the same time, Homo erectus had already spread across Asia from Georgia to Indonesia. Homo heidelbergensis inhabited both Europe and Africa. In the Altai Mountains, a genetically distinct population, now known as the Denisovans, had taken shape. And in Western Europe, Neanderthals had adapted to the cold with robust bodies and unique cranial features. The prehistoric Earth was not home to a single human lineage. It was a multi-species ecosystem, coexisting, competing, and sharing resources. Hundreds of archaeological sites across the globe confirm this. In Atapuerca, Spain, caves contain bones of Homo heidelbergensis dating over 400,000 years. In Denisova Cave, Russia, a tiny bone fragment found in 2010 revealed an entirely new human group, Denisovans, who interbred with both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. In the Rift Valley of East Africa, layers of sediment contain the fossil record of millions of years of human evolution. And in Java, Indonesia, Homo erectus skulls suggest early sea-crossing migrations and long-term survival. These discoveries sketch a clear picture. Modern humans were not a beginning, but a result. For hundreds of thousands of years, different human branches appeared, thrived, and vanished. Some endured for tens of thousands of years. Others are known only from a few bones, but all were part of a once much richer human ecosystem. These species did not merely differ in anatomy. They used different tools, hunted differently, moved differently, and survived through strategies shaped by the climate, terrain, and resources of their regions. Neanderthals had thick brow ridges and skulls larger than Homo sapiens. They used Mousterian stone tools, hunted large animals, and lived in caves. Denisovans left strong genetic traces in modern Melanesians, suggesting they spread far into Southeast Asia and perhaps crossed seas early on. Homo erectus survived for over 1 million years, could control fire, and was the oldest human lineage to leave Africa. There is no evidence that any one human species was absolutely superior to the others. Instead, each survived by adapting to its specific environment. So why did Homo sapiens, just one branch, become the only humans left? This is not only a biological question, it's a key to understanding ourselves. What allowed our ancestors to survive while other intelligent, capable species vanished? The answer lies not in a single mutation or tool, but in a long process: migration, interbreeding, competition, exchange, and contact between human groups over tens of thousands of years. The next chapters of this story will explore the chain of competition and cooperation that shaped our fate. Not all others were defeated. Some merged, some left genetic legacies, but all, except one, disappeared from Earth. And Homo sapiens became the one to tell the tale. Part 2: Neanderthals, the strong ones in the shadows. Neanderthals were a now extinct human species that lived primarily in Europe and Western Asia from about 400,000 to 40,000 years ago. Genetic data confirms they were our closest relatives, splitting from a common ancestor with Homo sapiens around 600,000 years ago. Physically, Neanderthals were built for survival in harsh climates: short, stocky bodies, thick bones, and strong muscles. Their average cranial capacity was 1,450 centimeters cubic, larger than modern humans, with a pronounced occipital bun and prominent brow ridges. Their survival relied more on biology than technology. They hunted large animals, moved in small groups, and used Mousterian stone tools, more advanced than Oldowan, but less diverse than those used by contemporary Homo sapiens. Archaeological sites like Shanidar, Iraq, El Cedron, Spain, and La Chapelle-aux-Saints, France, suggest that Neanderthals cared for the injured, buried their dead intentionally, and may have developed proto-language or non-verbal communication. Some evidence points to the use of pigments, shell ornaments, and possible symbolic behaviors, but their key vulnerability was their limited response to change. Neanderthals thrived in stable ecosystems, coniferous forests, cold grasslands, and caves. But as Pleistocene climate cycles grew unpredictable, with melting ice, disappearing forests, expanding steppes, and unstable food sources, their specialized environments collapsed. Old strategies stopped working. Specialized hunting, unchanging tools, and small group organization weren't flexible enough to explore new territories or exploit new resources. Their population fragmented, genetic diversity declined, and isolation deepened. Meanwhile, Homo sapiens entered Neanderthal territory from Africa. Though not physically stronger, they held a strategic edge, flexible organization, and symbolic thought. Sapiens learned fast and transmitted knowledge through language, symbols, drawings, and rituals. A comparison of tools highlights the gap. Neanderthal tools remained largely unchanged for millennia. In contrast, Homo sapiens invented new techniques, thin stone blades, projectile weapons, reflecting a mindset of constant innovation. When survival required high adaptability, Neanderthals' social and cognitive structures lacked flexibility. Isolated populations couldn't maintain genetic diversity, increasing vulnerability to disease and reproductive decline. There's no evidence of large-scale war between the species, but their co-presence at sites like Grotte Mandrin, France, and Pestera cu Oase, Romania, shows resource competition, direct contact, and likely interbreeding. Neanderthal extinction was not a sudden catastrophe, but the result of overlapping pressures, environmental shifts, population decline, competition from Homo sapiens, and cultural stagnation. They vanish from the fossil record around 40,000 years ago, yet their genes live on in 1% to 4% of the DNA of modern Eurasian populations. Neanderthals were not primitive or foolish. They were an evolutionary success in a tough world, but they could not match the pace of change, and history has no place for those who stand still. Art 3. Sapiens, the dreamer with invisible weapons. Homo sapiens appeared in East Africa around 300,000 years ago. Physically, they resembled other contemporary humans, moderate body size, lighter skeletons than Neanderthals, and brain volumes around 1,350 centimeters cubed, not superior. But the real difference was in how their brains were organized. The prefrontal cortex, key to emotion regulation, abstract thought, and planning, was more developed. Language-related areas, especially Broca's and Wernicke's regions, showed denser neural connections. This enabled flexible thinking, complex memory, and symbolic systems. Homo sapiens could imagine future scenarios, build mental worlds, and invent non-existent ideas, ancestors, rituals, laws, spirits. This was the foundation for a revolutionary ability, large-scale cooperation. While other humans operated in kin-based small groups, Homo sapiens could organize communities beyond family through shared beliefs and symbols. Evidence from Blombo's Cave and Pinnacle Point, South Africa, and later Göbekli Tepe, Turkey, reveals early symbolism, kierst shells, red ochre, body decoration, abstract engravings. Around 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens began leaving Africa. They crossed Sinai into the Middle East, then spread to Europe, Asia, Australia, and eventually the Americas. On this journey, they met other human species, Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Central Asia, and remnant Homo erectus in Southeast Asia. Modern DNA analysis shows that Homo sapiens did not completely replace ancient humans. Interbreeding occurred. Neanderthal genes make up 1 to 4% of European and Asian DNA. Denisovan genes are found in Melanesians, Papua New Guineans, and parts of East Asia. These genetic traces prove that these encounters were not just confrontations. There was biological exchange, but culturally, socially, and technologically, Homo sapiens gained the upper hand. One key factor was the speed of innovation. Sapiens tools changed rapidly to suit new environments. Sophisticated stonework, spear throwers, mineral paints, semi-permanent shelters. They adapted fast, learned from other groups, and expanded their influence. While other human species had low population densities, narrow habitats, and ecological specialization, Homo sapiens maintained geographic, dietary, and behavioral flexibility. These differences accumulated into a final outcome. Other human species disappeared from the archaeological record between 40,000 and 20,000 years ago. Only Homo sapiens remained. This was not absolute victory. There's no clear evidence of mass genocide or systematic war. Instead, blending, competition, and cultural replacement unfolded slowly and locally. We, modern Homo sapiens, are not just survivors. We are the result of convergence, of genes, cultures, tools, and dreams. What remains in our bodies and minds is the legacy of many human lines, once alive, once dreaming. Part 4. The Final Encounters Between Friends and Foes. Archaeological evidence confirms that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals coexisted in many European regions from about 45,000 to 35,000 years ago. Sites like Prehistoric, Romania, Vindija, Croatia, and Grotte-Mondrian, France, show overlapping genetic and cultural traces of both species within the same sediment layers, sometimes only generations apart. At Prehistoric, a modern human skull contains large, intact segments of Neanderthal DNA, indicating a Neanderthal ancestor only a few generations earlier. At Vindija, Neanderthal bone fragments were found with tools showing hybrid styles, suggesting technical exchange or cultural blending. These findings disprove the idea that Homo sapiens entered Europe after Neanderthals were gone. They lived together, possibly for millennia. During this time, interactions were inevitable, but their exact nature is unclear. There may have been interbreeding, tool sharing, territorial conflict, competition for prey and shelter. Yet major differences shaped the long-term outcome: population size, geographic spread, and pace of innovation. Data show that Neanderthals' diet became less diverse over time. Bone and enamel microanalysis from sites like El Sidrón show dependence on meat from a few large species. In contrast, Homo sapiens consumed a wide range: small game, fish, roots, seeds, and seasonal fruit. These survival strategies had direct consequences. Homo sapiens could expand, maintain stable populations, and adapt to change. Neanderthals grew increasingly isolated. Genetic studies of late Neanderthals show inbreeding, shrinking diversity, and low population density. There is no evidence of large-scale genocide or decisive battles, but over generations and regions, biological and cultural shifts occurred quietly. Homo sapiens occupied former Neanderthal lands not through violence, but through gradual encroachment, enabled by social networks, survival tactics, and symbolic thinking. These encounters, whether friendly or hostile, happened under growing environmental pressure: unstable climate, dwindling resources. Less adaptable populations declined and disappeared. By about 40,000 years ago, Neanderthal traces began vanishing. Their former sites no longer show new Neanderthal presence. Instead, modern humans. Neanderthal extinction wasn't sudden, but every step Homo sapiens took, spreading out, innovating, organizing, pushed Neanderthals further back. The process took millennia, quiet, unmythologized, but decisive. In the end, only one human species remained. Part 5. Within us, they remain. Neanderthals went extinct around 40,000 years ago. Denisovans left no complete skeletons. Remnant Homo erectus vanished from Asia about 100,000 years ago. Yet biological extinction does not mean absolute erasure. Modern human genomes, especially in Asian and European populations, contain 1% to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Melanesians and some East Asians carry up to 5% Denisovan genes. These findings confirm that ancient humans interbred with Homo sapiens at various times and places during their global spread. This genetic legacy isn't just symbolic, it has real physiological and functional effects. Some Neanderthal gene variants influence immune responses to viruses and bacteria. Denisovin genes assist in high-altitude adaptation, such as in modern Tibetans. Other gene segments affect skin tone, hair, metabolism, even neurological behavior. Ancient humans didn't fully vanish. Their biological imprint survives, encoded in our living DNA. But the influence goes beyond genes. Archaeology suggests Neanderthals had symbolic capacity. Red pigments, body ornaments, burials. Some evidence points to abstract art, multi-purpose tools, and system-level thinking. If accurate, Neanderthals were not cognitively inferior, just developed differently, at a different scale and speed. Thus, the difference between Homo sapiens and other human species wasn't about absolute capacity. It lay in our ability to scale up symbols into large, stable, transgenerational systems. Homo sapiens built syntactic languages, preserved tradition through ritual, and passed experience through signs and art. They created social memory. Beyond individuals, retaining, refining, and expanding knowledge collectively. In contrast, if Neanderthals also dreamed, their dreams may have died with them. No systems preserve them across generations, no intergeneration. So we must ask, did Neanderthals imagine? Did they ponder death, spirits, the sacred? If so, their dreams have no storyteller left. Today, Homo sapiens remain the only humans capable of remembering, imagining, and storytelling. And in every cave painting, every handprint, every stone or bone tool carefully shaped, there isn't only Homo sapiens. There is a fusion of lineages, of minds, a part Neanderthal, a part Denisovan, apart from deeper ancestors. All live on in the biology and spirit of the modern human. We are not only Homo sapiens, we are where the memory of other humans survives.